The Mississippi River flowed sluggish and brown beneath the late August sun, its banks fringed with cottonwoods that whispered in the humid breeze drifting through Forest Park in St. Louis. The air hung heavy with barbecue smoke curling from the grill, blending with the river's earthy dampness and the faint sweetness of freshly cut grass. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind I'd always treasured. Warm but not stifling, the sky a hazy blue streaked with wispy clouds, cicadas buzzing a relentless hum that pulsed through the park. I'm Ellen, 41, a widowed accountant who spends weekdays in a sterile downtown office, my cubicle a barricade of tax forms, spreadsheets, and a coffee mug stained from years of use. My nights in a modest brick bungalow in Webster Groves, a quiet suburb where streets curve past old oaks and lawns stay neatly trimmed. I'd planned this family picnic with the precision of a balance sheet. 2 coolers stuffed with ice, soda cans clinking against potato salad tubs, a portable speaker playing Springsteen and Seeger from a playlist I'd pieced together the night before, a folding table covered with a frayed red checkered cloth I'd dug out of Paul's old things, its edges worn but precious. The grill hissed with ribs and burgers, flames licking the meat, and the table groaned under platters of coleslaw speckled with carrots, baked beans rich with molasses, corn I'd shucked at dawn, my fingers still sticky with silk despite 3 scrubs. My son, Max, 19, sat across from me, his sandy hair a messy veil over hazel eyes, his faded t-shirt hugging his lean frame, an architecture student back from Mizzou's dorms since May. His backpack traded for a sketchpad bursting with half-drawn buildings and bridges. Beside him was my younger sister, Natalie, 39, a Target clerk from Fenton, her auburn ponytail swaying as she fiddled with napkins, her laugh sharp but tired from endless retail hours. Her husband, Greg, 43, a delivery driver with a salt and pepper beard and a voice rough from years of CB radio shouts, manned the grill, flipping ribs with blackened tongs, his flannel sleeves rolled up despite the heat. Their son, Tim, 15, a lanky comic book nerd with dark curls, sprawled on a blanket nearby, his phone glowing in the sun as he swiped through digital pages, one earbud dangling free. At the table's edge sat my dad, Victor, 67, a retired mechanic with scarred hands from decades under hoods, his Cardinals cap shading a lined face as he peered through the smoke, his fork resting on a paper plate heaped with beans. I'd meant this day to knit us together, a tapestry of stories and laughter over sticky ribs, but when Max passed me the barbecue, the thread started to fray. The plate of ribs glistened between us, coated in sauce I'd perfected the night before. Brown sugar melted into vinegar, a pinch of cayenne for bite, a recipe I'd honed over years until it was just right, its scent weaving through the smoke like a vow. "Here, Mom," Max said, his voice low, almost lazy, with a gravelly edge I'd noticed since he came home, reaching across the table, the plate steady in his left hand. His right hand brushed my shoulder, bare where my tank top strap had slipped, bunched from lugging coolers and setting up. It wasn't a quick graze, the kind you'd expect passing food at a busy table. It lingered, his fingers trailing slow, deliberate, a warm pressure sinking into my skin, stretching too long, too purposeful. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth, coleslaw trembling on the tines, a jolt of unease stabbing my chest, my breath catching like I'd stumbled into a sudden fall. His eyes met mine, hazel, flecked with gold, a color I'd loved because it mirrored Paul's, but they were shadowed now, murky with something I couldn't place, and a faint smirk tugged his lips, not reaching his gaze as he set the plate down, leaning back in his chair with a creak. I managed a nod, my lips twitching into a smile that felt more like a wince, my heart pounding against my ribs, drowning the cicadas for a moment. I handed the baked beans to Natalie, who was ranting about a customer trying to return a blender without a box. Her voice a tether I gripped like a lifeline in rough water. "Guy swore he bought it last week, but it reeked of burnt soup," she laughed, her ponytail bouncing as she nudged Tim, who grunted without looking up, thumbs racing over his phone, earbuds swinging like a metronome. Greg chuckled from the grill, a deep rumble over the meat's sizzle. Folks'll say anything these days. Flipping a burger, grease spitting onto the coals. Dad glanced up, fork pausing mid-air, his brow furrowing under his cap as his eyes shifted from Max to me, smoke curling around him like a shroud. He didn't speak, just took a slow bite of corn, kernels crunching, but I felt his stare, heavy, probing, a weight tightening my already strung nerves. Natalie kept chattering, something about a manager scolding now. Unaware of the shift, but my skin prickled where Max had touched me, that moment replaying. His fingers, the slow drag, a feeling I couldn't name but couldn't shed. Max wasn't always like this. Didn't always carry this quiet, simmering edge that made me doubt the boy I'd raised. He'd been my joy as a kid. Bright, curious, a whirlwind who'd follow me through our old Dogtown duplex, toy truck in one hand, crayon in the other, scribbling houses on my tax forms while I balanced the checkbook, calculator clicking late into the night. After Paul died, his pickup crushed by a semi on a 64 when Max was 5, a wreck that stole my husband and left me widowed at 27. It was just us, a fragile pair held together by love and need. I'd fought my way out of that darkness, taking night classes at LU for my degree, temping at filing jobs or data entry. Anything to cover rent, while Max sat in corners with goldfish crackers and coloring books, his little legs dangling off chairs too big for him. He grew up fast, hauling groceries up the duplex stairs at 6, fixing his bike chain with Dad's wrench by 8, unofficial/official, a steady presence even when I was unraveling, weeping into my coffee after midnight shifts. High school turned him quiet. Architecture became his world. His room a mess of graph paper, rulers, and tiny models of towers and bridges glued together with sticky fingers. His chatter fading to focused silence. I'd pushed him toward Mizzou, saved every penny for tuition, dreaming he'd design something grand. A library, a museum. But he came home after a year, grades in ruins, voice flat with defeat. "It's not for me, Mom," he said, standing in my kitchen with a duffel bag over his shoulder, sketchpad clutched like a shield, eyes begging for a safe landing. I let him stay, hoping he'd find his way, a drafting job, an internship, but he drifted, sleeping till noon, sketching into the night, picking up odd jobs painting houses or murals downtown. His laughter swapped for shrugs and a silence like a wall. That touch at the picnic, though, it wasn't my Max, the boy who'd hug me after long days, drawing me goofy portraits with lopsided grins and hearts overhead. It was something new, something that churned in my gut, cold and wrong, and as Natalie's tale rolled on, Tim's earbuds buzzing, Greg's tongs clacking, I couldn't shake it. The picnic stretched into late afternoon, the sun dipping low, gilding the river with gold and orange, cottonwood shadows stretching long across the grass like fingers reaching for water. Greg stacked ribs on a chipped platter, meat shining with sauce, tongs clinking as he piled them high, while Natalie passed out Cokes and Sprites, cans cold against her palms, her chatter shifting to coworker drama. Overtime, a spilled coffee mess that cracked up the store. Tim stayed glued to his phone, sprawled on the blanket, sneakers kicking dirt, muttering about a mutant comic team-up. His voice a hum barely reaching us. Dad kept us grounded, his gravelly voice cutting in. "How's work, Ellen? Gutter fixed?" Steering us like when Natalie and I were kids, racing bikes down his Ferguson Street, dodging oil stains from his garage. I answered on autopilot, passing rolls from a napkin-lined basket, refilling cups with fast-melting ice, keeping busy to steady my racing mind, but my eyes kept drifting to Max. He ate slow, methodical, fork scraping his plate in a rhythm that grated. His gaze flicking to me every few bites. Too long, too steady, an intensity that crawled under my skin. Once, reaching for coleslaw, his hand brushed mine. Another slow touch, fingers grazing my knuckles, warm and deliberate, sending a shiver up my arm, and I yanked back, the bowl wobbling, clattering sharp against the table, cutting Natalie's laugh. "Oops," he said, soft, almost a whisper, but his eyes held mine, unflinching, a glint I couldn't name sparking in the dark. Greg coughed loud, slamming the platter down, rattling the table, and Natalie paused mid-sentence. "You okay, Ellen?" she asked, her clerk's eye catching my flinch, brow creasing with worry. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a brittle laugh, throat dry as sandpaper. "Slippery bowl, that's all." Dad's fork stopped, his gaze narrowing on Max, jaw tight as he chewed a rib, smoke curling around his cap like a halo, a silent judgment settling over him. The chatter resumed, Natalie back to her story, Tim mumbling about his game, Greg grunting about a rout. But the air thickened, charged with glances I couldn't meet, a splinter digging deeper into my chest. The day dragged on, the table a mess of greasy plates, crumpled napkins, soda cans glinting in fading light, the river's murmur growing as the breeze rustled leaves overhead. I stood to clear, needing space, grass soft under my sneakers as I carried plates to a trash bin by trees, the park's hum, kids shouting, a dog barking by the water, a faint shield against the tension clinging like damp cloth. I dumped the plates, paper scraping the bin's edge, and breathed, the river's coolness brushing my face, easing the heat in my bones. Max followed, quiet as a shadow, his plate clinking beside mine. His presence a sudden weight. "Need help?" he asked, voice low, too close, breath grazing my ear as he stepped near. I turned, a napkin fluttering to the grass, and he was there. Too close, looming in the cottonwood shade, hands in pockets but eyes locked on me, unblinking, pinning me like a moth under glass. "I've got it," I snapped, stepping back, heel catching a root, a jolt up my spine as I steadied against the bin. He tilted his head, a half smile curling his lips, lazy but cold. "You sure?" he said, soft, teasing, and my pulse spiked, that touch flashing back. His fingers, the slow drag, a weight in my marrow. "Go sit," I said, firm, turning to the bin, hands shaking as I tossed trash, breeze cold on my neck, raising goosebumps. He lingered, a pressure at my back, a heat I felt without looking, then retreated, sneakers crunching grass as he ambled off, leaving me gripping the bin till my knuckles whitened, the river's roar drowning the park's noise. Dessert came late. Apple pie I'd baked last night, crust golden, filling tart with Granny Smith's I'd peeled till my fingers ached, a recipe from Paul's mom I'd clung to after he was gone. Natalie sliced it, knife flashing as she chattered about a Target sale. Half-price towels, coupon chaos, her voice filling gaps. Tim took a sliver, eyes on his phone, earbuds in, a faint beat leaking as he swiped comics, lost to us. Greg poured lemonade, pitcher sweating in his grip. His silence heavy, glances darting between Max and me, tension in his shoulders. Dad watched, fork over pie, frown deepening when Max leaned back, chair creaking, gaze drifting to me. Steady, quiet, pulling me under like a current. I cut my pie precisely, sweetness cloying against the knot in my chest, nodding as Natalie praised the ribs. "Best yet, Ellen, swear." My replies mechanical, voice hollow. The picnic wound down slow, sun dipping below trees, river amber and gray, Greg and Natalie packing leftovers, Tim kicking pebbles, blanket under arm, Dad folding the checkered cloth, hands slow, creases smoothed with care. "You all right, Ellie?" he asked, soft but sharp, eyes searching as he tucked the cloth away, cap tilted to show worry. "Just tired." I dodged, stacking cups fast, avoiding his gaze, and he patted my shoulder, warm but doubtful, lingering before shuffling to the car with a grunt, limp heavier in the cool air. Max stayed, sprawled on the blanket, sketching the river's bend, pencil scratching as I cleaned alone, unease rooting deeper, thorns sharp against my lungs. Weeks bled into September, the house quiet without the picnic's buzz. Just me and my routine. Days over spreadsheets, nights cooking alone, TV droning cop shows I barely saw, sirens faint beyond my windows. Max texted sometimes. Sketch updates, a mural gig in Solard, painting a dragon on a bar wall, words short but steady, a thread I held tight. I'd find traces of him. Paint on jeans in the laundry, a bridge doodle on a napkin, a pencil stub in the couch, and feel the splinter shift, not gone, a dull ache. One morning I found his sketchpad from a rare /n/ rare coffee visit, open to a page I hadn't seen. A drawing of me, sharp lines, deep shadows, my bare shoulder from the picnic, face in profile, too real, too close, strokes heavy with focus that stole my breath. I flipped back, hands shaking. Pages of me, dozens, some from the picnic, others from quiet home moments, watching, waiting, a fixation that choked me. That night he came by, door creaking, boots thudding, hair wet from rain streaking windows. "Max," I said, book in my lap, voice steady despite the tremor. "We need to talk." He froze, eyes on the sketch, then sank onto the couch, head bowed, hands clasped. "I didn't mean it," he said, voice cracking raw. "The picnic, how I've been. Messed up, Mom. Dad dying, school crashing, everything piling. I don't know why it's you. I don't want it to be, I swear." I listened, his grief spilling. A wait since 5, Mizzou's failure a festering wound, a son lost, reaching in ways neither of us grasped by the river. You scared me, Max, I said, raw, cutting the quiet. I didn't know what you wanted, and it broke me. He looked up, tears streaking, hazel eyes wet. I didn't either, he whispered. I'm sorry, so sorry. I nodded, the splinter loosening. I need you to figure this out, away from here, I said, firm but shaking. You can't stay till you do. He nodded, wiping his face, and stood, shoulders slumped. I'll go, he said, small. I'll fix it. He moved out a week later, renting a room near his mural crew off Cherokee Street, starting therapy with Dr. Linda Hayes, a grief specialist I found through work. We talk now, coffee at a grand diner, short calls about sketches or audits, rebuilding slow, sketches locked in a drawer under tax files, door unlocked, a fragile peace taking root between us. October crisped the leaves in Webster Groves, oaks shedding gold onto my lawn, a crunch I swept lazily each weekend. The house felt lighter with Max gone. Not hollow, just still, a quiet I'd wanted after the picnic but hadn't expected to ache. We met twice weekly at the grand diner, a dive with chipped tables and burnt coffee, but hours. He'd slide in, sketchpad underarm, paint on his knuckles from mural gigs, hazel eyes softer, less shadowed. Dr. Hayes says I'm doing better, he'd say, stirring sugar into his mug, voice steady, and I'd nod, sipping mine, steam a fragile bridge. He'd show sketches, solard warehouses, the arch at dusk, bridges over the river. Not me anymore, thank God. I'd smile, trace the lines, the splinter in my chest dulling, a scar now, not a wound. We were mending, but the river still hummed in my dreams, smoke and that slow touch looping. Work anchored me. Tax season nearing, my cubicle a bunker of deadlines, fluorescents buzzing. I'd stay late, numbers blurring as I thought of Max. He'd settled into a walk-up off Cherokee, a third-floor room with peeling walls, canvases propped up, pencils strewn like leaves, a space to breathe. His mural crew kept him busy. Dragons on bar walls, jazz scenes in Benton Park, a dove for a church basement in Growa Park. Pay's okay, he'd said over coffee, flipping to a dragon coiled around a saxophone. Covers rent and therapy. Pride flickered through my lingering unease. Dr. Hayes called once, suggesting family therapy to untangle the picnic's knots. I hesitated, then agreed, penciling it in, my gut twisting as the date neared. The session came on a rainy Tuesday, her downtown office cramped, a sagging couch and a drooping fern. Max sat beside me, knee bouncing, sketchpad tight, while Dr. Hayes leaned in, glasses low, eyes sharp. Ellen, tell me about the picnic, she said, voice firm. I glanced at Max, his hair over his eyes, and saw him at 5, clutching me at Paul's funeral. It scared me, I said raw. His touch, it wasn't him. It broke me. Max flinched, hunching, and she nodded. Max, what did you feel? She asked. I was lost, he rasped. Dad's gone, school's gone, Mom's all I've got. I didn't mean it like that. His eyes met mine, wet, and the river blurred softer. We talked grief, guilt, crossed lines, left with homework, unsent letters. I wrote mine that night, alone, ink smudging as I spilled fear, love, the fracture. November chilled, Max's mural job surging. Holiday commissions, snowflakes on storefronts. He'd call, voice crackling, describing a jazz mural in Old North or a dragon over a bakery wall. Folks like it, he'd say, shy pride shining, and I'd picture him on a ladder, paintbrush in hand, finding his way. I cooked again, dropping lasagna at his place, stairs creaking, air sharp with turpentine. We'd eat on his mattress, silence easier, less a wall. Dad visited, limp worse, handing Max a toolbox. Paul's old wrenches, a gruff, fix something. Max nodded, and I saw Paul in his hands, a warmth that ached. Christmas neared, Natalie pushing for dinner at her Fenton place. Her Target discount scoring a turkey. No picnic vibes, she laughed, but the river flashed. I went, Max beside me, snow dusting the windshield. Greg greeted us, beard grayer. Tim sulked with a game, earbuds in. Dad sat in an armchair, watching Max with a softer gaze when he saw the toolbox. Natalie chattered, target chaos a half-eaten ham return, while I mashed potatoes, steam a shield. Max stayed quiet, but sketched a controller fix for Tim's game glitch on a napkin, earning a rare grin. Cool, Tim muttered, and Max shrugged, a spark in his eyes. Dinner ran late, turkey dry, laughter over Greg's rumble and Natalie's rants. Max's gaze drifted to the snow, not me, and I passed him pie. Apple warmer now. You okay? Yes. He nodded, crumbs on his lips. Yeah, Mom. Getting there. Dad patted his shoulder as we left, and I found Max's letter in my pocket later. Mom, I'm sorry for the picnic. I was drowning, you were the shore. I'm finding my way. Love, Max. I cried, alone, the splinter softening, a bruise I could bear. Spring swelled the river with April rain, Max's murals popping up. Dragons, bridges, a jazz trio on a Del Mar wall hitting the paper. We met at the diner, his hand steady, sketchpad full, threads tightening. I'm proud, I said, and he smiled, haze lifting. The river whispered, not roared, and I let it fade, holding the boy I'd raised, the man he'd become. May warmed the air, the river's swell easing, and Max's murals spread. Vines curling up a cafe wall on South Grand, a crane over a shop in Tower Grove. We met at the diner, his sketchpad thicker, his voice surer. Got a big one, he said, flipping to a bridge sketch, arches bold in ink. City job, downtown. I smiled, coffee cooling, pride swelling over the unease that lingered like a faint echo. He'd been with Dr. Hayes 6 months, his walk-up now a home. Bookshelves from thrift stores, a rug from Natalie. I'd visit, bringing pie, the stairs less creaky under my step, and we'd talk. His crew my audits. Silence rare now, replaced by a rhythm we'd rebuilt. One Sunday he called me to the river. Not Forest Park but a quiet bend near his place. Look, he said, pointing to a mural. Paul's truck, red and rusted, parked by water, a tribute. My throat tightened, the picnic's smoke a distant wisp. It's him, I whispered, and Max nodded, eyes clear. And us. The splinter faded, roots deepening in the space we'd carved.